Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of WWD. Today, we're going to be talking about the Sunday night football game with the Dolphins being at the Patriots, and we're going to go over how it affected fantasy and some of these finishing up matchups. First of all, neither me or Mr. Steeler Girl had anyone starting from that game. I had Ezekiel Elliott, however. It's really not looking great for Ezekiel Elliott. I gotta be the first to admit. They keep claiming they're going to use him more, but the only times it makes sense to use a guy like Ezekiel Elliott is the red zone, and yet they keep using Stevenson time and time again for these red zone touches. So it's really not looking great for Elliott around the board. He's not going to get many catches, and when he gets runs, he's not getting many yards. So from fantasy, things are getting a bit concerning here. Um, and then Mr. Steeler Girl had Juju Smith-Schuster, who had an okay game, nothing special. He had 5 catches for 28 yards. Overall, it wasn't a great matchup for Juju. He was against a very good corner in Xavier Howard. So overall, he struggled, but it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. He could have done worse overall, but it was a very tough matchup for the corners. Then we had Scrambled and Wiggle Waggled against Toxic Zenpai. I believe the only thing in terms of starters here we had was Toxic Zenpai, who had Jerome Baker. Jerome Baker, while he didn't do horrible, he still went in the red, which is going to hurt Toxic quite a bit here because I think he needed to gain some ground here against Scrambled and Wiggle Waggled, as his percent's going to drop a bit because of that. But overall, he had 3 tackle solo, 3 tackle assists, which is okay. It's nothing like to be concerned over for future weeks, but it really wasn't what you were looking for tonight, at least. Let me see if either of you had anyone else. I don't think you did. Nope, already. Next up, we had Pussy and J-Bay. Now, Pussy obviously had Tyreek Hill, but J-Bay actually had the other receiver in Jalen Waddle. And we'll talk about it later. The Patriots actually had a very interesting idea of how to stop and shut down these receivers. Even though Tyreek Hill, yeah, sure, he had 17 points, which is great in terms of fantasy. He didn't have the type of game he normally would have where he would get like 85-yard touchdowns here and there and all that. He actually played the game like a normal receiver tonight, where he only had 5 catches for 40 yards. His touchdown was a 2-yard check down. So the Patriots were pretty much doing everything in their power to funnel Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle into the middle of the field, so that way they couldn't make their big plays. But overall, they still did solid, but I think they didn't do nearly as high as they're going to do in other weeks because the Patriots pretty much made it their game plan to limit what they were able to do. Um, so overall, they both went a little bit in the red, but they both still did good for what they were expecting. Nothing to be concerned with on either side. Well, there is one thing. Jalen Waddle did get shaken up pretty good towards the ending of the game. I don't know if he came back or not. I didn't notice if he did. But overall, that's a little concerning. Got to watch out for that injury if you're J-Bay. But fuck it, J-Bay. You're never going to fix your damn team anyway. Um, then we had Pussy, who had Jason Sanders. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. Again, it's like I always say, it's a kicker. There was one noticeable thing. He did miss a 55-yarder, which isn't an easy kick by any means, but it's a lot of points he potentially missed out on, and it's obviously not good that he missed it. J-Bay had New England's defense against Miami, and even though New England did a very good job overall of containing Hill and Waddle, overall they still only had 17.5 points pretty much because they really didn't do too much in terms of defense. They had a sack. They had a block kick. I forgot about that. That was probably their highlight of the night. A sack, a pick from Christian Gonzalez, their rookie, and then a block kick, which was it was probably definitely their biggest and most interesting play of the night. Then Pussy also had Jawan Bentley, who had the same issue as Jerome Baker, except this time it actually works out for Pussy because Pussy doesn't need Jawan Bentley to have a great night tonight, so it's really not going to hurt him. But overall, it's another okay week, but nothing great. Um, yeah, Jeff Wilson, but he didn't play. And I believe that is it in terms of Pussy and J-Bay. Then we had Rick Tatership and Big Yawners, and here's where things actually got pretty dang interesting. Oops. Here's where things actually got pretty dang interesting. Now, I could be wrong. Cree, Darth, you guys will have to correct me. I believe before this game started tonight, I believe Cree was down to like a 30% chance, maybe a bit less than that, while Darth was in the 70s. The only thing that happened in terms of the starters in this game was Cree actually had Javon Holland, who, as you see, was projected 10 points. He was one of my guys to look out for in the free agency recommendations video. Cree, I'm glad you paid attention because this might have just won you your week. Javon Holland, 21 points, 6 tackles solo, 5 tackle assists, a pass deflect, and a tackle for loss. That's 11 total tackles in the game. Week 1, he had 14. This guy's looking like an absolute fucking beast. Honestly, you might be able to start him for the rest of the year. Yeah, he's looking very good overall, and it might have just won you your week with how good he did. You had Raheem Mostert on the bench too. Um, Overall, I was surprised they really didn't use a cane almost at much or almost at all. I could be wrong. I don't think they did because I didn't see him at all whenever I was watching. I might have missed out if they did because yeah, I did not see him out there in the slightest. I could be wrong. I don't even think they played him though. But overall, Mahostert was a fucking beast. You remember how I said the Patriots pretty much made it their game plan? They used 3 safeties to try to shut down Hill and Waddle. So what they did is they used their speed back to punch it up the middle and just pretty much bully Jawan Bentley, who was the middle linebacker. It wasn't that Bentley did bad. It was just that Mostert was so fast. He was pretty much able to outrun Bentley, who was literally their only middle linebacker they were playing because they had so many safeties. So the Dolphins pretty much just exploited that throughout the game. So it was a pretty interesting scenario where both the Dolphins and Patriots coaches were pretty much in a big I don't know how to describe it, like a big scheme fight here. It's kind of like a chess match, and it was a very interesting thing to watch if you're big into that type of thing with football. But overall, this was a huge W in terms of dictatorship, though. I think he'll be very looking very towards tomorrow for this. I think he's probably going to win this now because honestly, I don't think Ford's going to do much. Minka has been looking worse and worse by the week, but maybe he does better tomorrow. And then you got and then Dictatorship has Demario Davis, who I think is very underprojected. I think he'll probably get around 15 or so, but I guess only time can tell. Good luck, fellas. This really is the matchup of the week. Then we had Karen's husband and PMC Wagner. Now this is another one where everything that really happened with PMC Wagner isn't going to affect him too much. Now what you saw here was, let's see here. Are there any starters here? Christian Wilkins for Karen's husband did very good. I saw he had at least 1 sack. Yeah, he had a sack, a tackle for loss, 5 tackles solo, 2 assists. Yeah, he did very good. He's a pretty good defensive lineman to have overall. Other than that, in terms of the starters, there wasn't really much worth mentioning, and it's not really hurting. It's not really hurting Zach or helping Karen's team. Karen's team just kind of got shat on this week. Yeah, and I was right. There's Kane. He really didn't do much, which for now I wouldn't panic on if you're PMC just because he is coming off of that injury. Maybe they're just trying to ease him in to playing again without getting him hurt right off the bat. So maybe give him like another week or two, see if he keeps being shitty, and then maybe think about dropping him or trading him or whatever. But for now, I really wouldn't panic. But other than that, there really isn't much to talk about there. And we had Booty and MILF. I think this is where there's a lot of players that were being started. Let's see here. We had Ramondre Stevenson on the side of MILF, who did good. He pretty much hit his projection close to on the spot. He had 50 rushing yards, 10 receiving yards, and a rushing touchdown. He actually won me some money from betting. I appreciate that, Ramondre. You are a sexy beast. But overall, it was a solid game. If you're a Ramondre owner such as MILF, you should be excited at the fact that Ezekiel Elliott is barely even looking at this ball, like barely contesting him. I know a lot of people were worried about that coming into the season, but not really. It's really not looking like that's going to be a problem for you. And then it's kind of the same situation here with Hunter Henry, who did very good, 17.20, 6 for 52, touchdown. I thought coming into the season, Mike Gesicki was going to be taking a lot of his catches. While that is true, he did do that. It's kind of like a Bengals situation where they're using these guys so much that them sharing each other's catches and snaps, it really doesn't matter. They're both getting their fair share. So I really don't think it's going to hurt him that much. If anything, he's actually doing really good this year. Let's see what else we had here. We had Tua from Booty Basher, who really couldn't do what he usually does because of how the Patriots were playing, where they pretty much shut down the receivers into getting small checkdowns left and right while they relied on the run game, which isn't a problem for Tua. I don't think many teams will do what the Patriots did. But overall, it was just a genius idea from Belichick and their whole defense. Um, then what else did we have? We had, I believe you had a defensive lineman. Yeah, you had Lawrence Guy, who, if I would be honest, I'd be cutting at this point if I was MILF. I do not see much upside with him. 5 points week 1 point this week. There is a lot of better guys out there. There's a lot of better D linemen you can get out there. There's especially a lot of guys you can put in this D spot. You can put any position in at this D spot. Putting in a defensive lineman usually isn't going to be a great idea, let alone this guy. I really don't think he's going to do well. You may as well cut him and try to find another good defensive guy in free agency. There's a lot of them out there. You just got to look. Um, yeah, other than that, there wasn't really much to talk about with him. He played like shit. He's not really great in fantasy. Um, let's see what other backups you guys had. I think that's it in terms of that. So I believe I looked at everybody's matchups. I'm going to switch on over to the other screen where we look at the stats from the game. Alrighty, we are back. Okay, so yeah, 24-17 was the final score of the game, obviously. Tua did good. He threw one pick, and I will say this was actually a very interesting thing that I wasn't expecting. Pretty much the entire cornerback room on the Patriots is hurt at this point. They were down to, I believe, their fourth string and then their number one corner, who was actually their first round pick rookie from the draft this year. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about this is Tua's only interception this game was literally just a jump ball. It was a 50-50 jump ball between Tyreek Hill and uh, Christian Gonzalez, the rookie. Now, overall, Tyreek Hill has never been known for jump balls. He's still one of the best receivers in the league, don't get me wrong, but it's not what he's known for. Either way, it's still really impressive from the rookie to beat him in a jump ball, kind of like it was nothing. Overall, Tua did his job. He didn't do bad. He didn't do anything special, but he did his job to win the game. It wasn't really his fault on the pick, or at least not completely. I think it was just one of those things where he was just trusting his receiver. Mostert did amazing. Ahmed got a few carries for 4 yards, which is okay. They're using a shit ton of running backs, which is a little concerning, but Ekazuzama, however you want to pronounce that, didn't do much. Akane did do good with his one run he had. That's about it. And then as you'll see here, Waddle and Hill is only getting 8 yards per catch on average. Waddle got 21, which is better, but overall it wasn't like they normally would, where they're like getting a shit ton of yards per game and all that stuff. They used Ahmed as their receiving back. He was a running back. I noticed they were using him a lot for receptions. Mostert and Kane also had a catch, but it's not really worth mentioning that much. But it is worth mentioning that neither of them got the reception down plays, at least. And then the defense, we'll look at Javon Holland, who, like I said last week, was looking like an absolute fucking beast. Rick Tatership really got a steal with him with these tackles. Bradley Chubb actually looked pretty damn good. I don't remember what he did in week 1, but this week he did very good. If he's able to replicate that, I'd recommend giving him a look. Although he is one of those guys that's going to be more sack reliant if he's considered a linebacker. I think he's considered a linebacker in terms of fantasy. David Long, I remember Toxic actually just dropped him over this last week. I wasn't expecting this. I didn't think David Long was going to do too much. He got 4 tackles solo, 3 tackles assist, and a sack. That's very good. He actually had a very good week. I think that counts to around 20-some points. But overall, he did very good. I'm not saying I'd necessarily recommend picking him up, but keep an eye on him, because if this continues, it's looking like David Long could end up being the main tackler over Jerome Baker, or Javon Holland also too, but at least over Jerome Baker, because yeah, it looks like David Long was making most of the bigger plays compared to Baker, at least for tonight. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. Deshaun Elliott was a bit of an upset. I thought he'd do more, but Javon Holland was just taking everything. And it was actually kind of fun watching Holland. Was even on plays where, and this is what you want to see in fantasy, even on plays where there were guys who were already tackled and it was obvious that they were already tackled, Holland would always be like sprinting towards him, like getting ready to make a tackle just in case in almost every single scenario. And even if there was like a guy who's already in the process of being tackled, he'd always hop on. You always want to see that because you get a shit ton more opportunities of tackle assists and stuff, as you'll see with like the 5 he had this week. That is just brownie points around the board. If you find a guy who does that shit, it's amazing in fantasy. And he's one of those guys. I really think you'll have a steal for the rest of the season. Dictatorship unless something crazy happens. Um, like I said, Sanders was I didn't realize he missed 2 field goals. I thought he only missed one, but yeah, he actually missed 2 field goals. I reckon. So yeah, that's a little bit concerning. I'm not gonna lie. I thought he only missed one, but I guess he missed 2. I remember one was from 55. I don't remember what. Oh, okay. Never mind. Never mind. He didn't technically miss the second one. It was just that it was blocked. I know what it was. I didn't think it would be counted like that for the box score though. But yeah, the one was blocked, which you can't really blame the kicker for. And then the one overall he missed from 55 yards out. Overall, is a really good defensive play by the Patriots, but it's not really too crazy worth mentioning. You can't really predict block kicks as a stat when it comes to fantasy. And then the kick returns were actually pretty good for Miami too. And then switching on over to the Patriots, Mac Jones. This is something that's starting to get interesting. Um, I fully expected him to not be throwing for 54 passes like he did in week 1, but he still threw for 42 in this game, which is a shit ton. If this continues, he might actually be a very startable quarterback for, say, people like Karen's husband or whoever thinks they might need a quarterback, like anybody who goes down. Mac Jones is actually looking like he's going to produce a lot of yards. If he scored, say, another touchdown or 2 this week, he would have looked like a top quarterback in fantasy. But overall, he just didn't get those touchdowns, but the yards were solid. The uh, attempts were pretty good. Ramondre Stevenson went in there, did his thing. Mac Jones also had some scrambling yards, which was kind of surprising. So that's another few fantasy points, but I wouldn't bank on that if you plan on using him at any point. And then, like I already talked about, Elliott's not really looking too great. Um, you had Devontae Parker, who was going up against Eli Apple. I'm sorry to say this, Darth. I know you love Eli Apple. But Devontae Parker was just kind of bullying him throughout the game. 6 catches for 57 yards. It is worth mentioning he's on the free agency list. Keep an eye on him if you need another receiver. Devontae Parker has always been one of those guys where he's not going to be like elite for fantasy, but he's usually pretty consistent to get a good, say, 30 yards per game at least. And then sometimes, like in this scenario, more. So I would definitely keep an eye on him. I'm not saying to necessarily pick him up right away because I am a little concerned with how Kendrick Bourne will take away a lot of his catches, but I think Parker will be good overall. Um, Hunter Henry and Gesicki, like I said, they both did really good. Gesicki, that's 5 catches for 33. Henry for 6 for 52 and a touchdown. Overall, they're both getting a lot of opportunities with this ball. Bourne, I did warn you about this dictatorship when you picked him up. He's not going to replicate what he did every week. Week 1 where he had like 30 some points and 2 touchdowns and a turtle dove. No, he's not going to be doing that every week. That was a one-hit wonder. He had 4 catches for 29 yards, which you could say is arguable to keep on your bench or keep an out for, but overall he's not going to be doing that great, especially with Parker back. I think Parker's going to be taking most of those catches he got that week, but overall, keep an eye on it. It's worth checking out. Juju, like I said, just had a bad matchup at corner. He was going up against a really good cornerback, and Xavier Howard, who actually caught a pick on him. Then there was Ramondre Stevenson, who had the 3 catches as well. That's solid to see if you're a Stevenson owner. And then here's something that's funny. Cole Strange is actually the Patriots center. And he notice how it says he had 0 catches for 3 yards. This is kind of funny. The way the game ended was Gesicki was about to run trying to get a first down. He was getting tackled and stuffed by a few Patriots. So he wailed the ball back at one of his defensive linemen who ran it and almost got a first down. It was one of the cooler plays I've seen in a while. It almost worked, but the lineman was just a little bit short. That lineman was Cole Strange. And no, in case anybody's curious, Yahoo will not let you pick up any offensive linemen or try to start them, as cool as it would be. But unfortunately, no, it's a very rare thing. I thought it was just kind of funny and worth mentioning what happened in the game. Christian Gonzalez, the rookie, 6 tackles is actually something worth noting in terms of fantasy. He did very good in terms of his coverage throughout the night. He had a pick. The linebackers, you had Tay and Bentley each kind of sharing the load. Even though Tay had a better game in terms of fantasy, I wouldn't be worried about that because they each put up 7 tackles, so it's not like one guy is looking like the main tackler. Um, I don't know if anybody had Marcus Jones in our league, the 25 guy. He's a defensive back or cornerback, but he actually got hurt at about halfway through the game, and or probably about halfway through the second quarter actually. Um, he used to be their kick returner. I think they're taking him off of it, so he's not nearly as good as he was in years past. But he was making tackles left and right whenever he was playing corner, which is something worth that I think is worth mentioning for future games if he ends up starting, because most of these Patriots corners are getting hurt left and right. Matthew Judon had a sack. Um, what else was there that was really interesting that happened? I think that's pretty much about it in terms of the Patriots defense. Yeah, there wasn't really too much that happened there. The kick returns were pretty much non-existent. Everybody just called fair catches and shit. There wasn't really much worth mentioning, at least with the punt returns. The punts were pretty good though. Uh, da, 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 and overall, yeah, this was definitely a game of like chess, kind of where it all came down to the coaches. It was a fun game to watch if you're big into like the technical side of football, where there's like all coaches and schemes and plays to counter each other and stuff like that. Overall, the Patriots scheme worked really well against the Dolphins, but the Dolphins were able to just kind of work around it because if you don't know, the way the Dolphins team works is they have one of the fastest running backs in the league, and then the absolute fastest receiving core in the league, and then a quarterback that's willing to scramble. So if you don't put multiple safeties on to cover each of the receivers down deep, they're probably going to blow up on you on pretty much every play. And if you do put safeties out, the plan is to get the running back to get most of the work. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what happened tonight. But overall, they pretty much always have an answer, and that's kind of why they are as good of an offense as they are, and it's why they let Gesicki go, because I don't think they really give a shit about tight ends. They're just going to take that extra blocker and wait for the speed to do its thing. That's their whole team plan, is to rely completely on speed. Overall, it was a pretty interesting game though. It was fun watching the two try to outplay call each other, and that's pretty much what it all came down to. And then I'll talk to you guys tomorrow and let you guys know how the finale of everything goes down between the Monday Night Football game. I believe it is the Steelers and the Browns tomorrow for WWD episode. I believe tomorrow will be 6. Yeah, tomorrow will be 6. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a very good one.